Hello! In this lesson, we're going to be talking about anonymous functions. If that sounds scary to you, it's because they are. Actually, they're not. They're not scary at all. They're just like functions, except they basically live inside of a variable. So to give you an idea of what we're talking about here, we know that a function starts with function, and then you have your name, your parentheses, and some brackets. Then it returns something, and essentially, that's a function in a nutshell. But an anonymous function is a function that does not have a specific name. So an example would be variable x is equal to function, and then you can say alert ABC123. Now, I'm just going to open this up. Actually, I'm going to get rid of this stuff too, because that's no longer needed for this lesson. That was from last lesson. And I just open this file up in my browser. I hit F12 to open the inspector. Nothing shows up. Cool. Okay, so how do I execute an anonymous function? Because it's a variable, right? It's not a function, but it's a function inside of a variable? Well, it's really easy. You execute it just like you would a normal function. Only you can name, the name is what the variable name is. So you have x, you put your parentheses at the end of it, just like you're calling a function. Go back to your page, refresh it, and you have ABC123. That's your anonymous function. Now your anonymous function can also take arguments. Remember the first time that we ever added numbers together in a function? We used num1 and num2. Well, this is going to be the same thing. So let's just console log num1 plus num2. It's just simply going to return that in the console log. So save, refresh, I get not a number because it's missing parameter 1 and 2. So let's go 45, 54, refresh. There we go, we get 99. So an anonymous function is not too much different from a regular function. The biggest difference that you need to know right now is that an anonymous function is just a function that's held inside of a variable. Now the second thing you need to know about anonymous functions are they are not global. A regular function, when you type function, some name like this, that's global. So you can use that function in other function names, in other objects, in different sections of your code, and that's perfectly fine. But you remember when we wrote var, and var was scoped to a function, which means if we had function ABC, var name is equal to test, that means that this variable, this whole line here, is only accessible inside of the ABC function. Well, this is no different. So if we're running some sort of function, we'll call it anything. It doesn't really matter. And I'm just going to add some indenting here. So now I've got a function inside of a function. Now the reason I might want to declare an anonymous function inside of a function is because this console log num1 plus num2 might not need to run anywhere else except inside of the anything function. So if I wanted to run this more than once, 1, 2, x, 3, 4, x, 5, 6, and I wanted to run this function anything. So what I'm saying is, hey browser, trigger the function called anything. It does that. It creates another function in here. It's an anonymous function, and it's only ever going to run in here. Let's check that out. There we go. 3, 7, and 11. It added all those numbers together for us. But what happens if I do this? X, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6. X is not defined. Now that's because X was defined using the var keyword inside of a function. And that means it is stuck inside of that function. We cannot get it out. Now again, why is that useful, Caleb? Why would I ever want to have a function inside of a function that I can't get out? Well, because sometimes you have information inside of one of your functions that needs to be manipulated a certain way. Or a good example would be formatting. You want to format your text a certain way, but that formatting only ever applies to this one function. Well, why declare a global function when it only applies to your one function? That's a lot of functions. But essentially the point is, why clutter up your global namespace? Basically, why have so many functions out in the open where they can be used anywhere when they don't need to be? Now, essentially, that is all an anonymous function is. It's a function inside of a variable. but it has different scoping rules to it. And scoping is something we're going to talk a little bit more about in the future. So don't worry too much about that. If you're very curious, you can hop on the old Google machine, type in JavaScript scopes. Other than that, what I would like you to do for this lesson is create an anonymous function, not this kind. Create this kind of anonymous function. And it doesn't have to be complex. I just want you to write one so you can get the feel of it. And then have it execute. That's all. Shouldn't take you more than about 60 seconds.